Oh my god, it's all coming back to me.
It's coming. Do you not remember?
Back to me.
Okay. Kia ora koutou. Welcome to our discussion today about one of this month's book picks, which was The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. Our prompt this month, and by month I mean months, we've started doing like bi-monthly, so like June, July, was books that have been made into TV shows. So this is the Bridgerton series, the Bridgerton book that Hannah recommended to me, The Duke and I. Can I ask, Hannah, when did you read this book?
Honestly, like when the whole Bridgerton hype first started.
Oh,
which
right.
is why
So
I actually wish I'd reread it, because my memory now, having watched the seasons and stuff and not continued on, is a little bit like, wait, what happened? Like,
oh, yeah. To be honest, though, I don't think that's going to fit the discussion, because like the plot itself, in terms of plot points, was super simple. Like, let's
yeah.
And let's like dive into it. We've both got our hot drinks.
Let's go.
So
what are you drinking?
I'm drinking hot chocolate, but with like this almond milk that you like make, like it comes from a jar and you like make it.
That sounds so like your husband.
Yeah. Yeah. If we had any other
chai.
milk in the house, I would be drinking that. But what have you got?
I'm drinking a chai.
Beautiful.
Lovely. All right, give us.
So yeah, this book. I rated it 3 stars.
Ooh.
And that's really solely because of what we'll probably get to later, but like about the very controversial scene in it that really did color the rest of the book for me. So I'm going to speak about how I felt about the book up until the scene where Daphne.
Oh my god, it's all coming back to me.
It's coming. Do you not remember?
Back to me.
Okay. I feel like if you've watched the vlog, you will know what scene I'm talking about. And if you just read these books, you know what scene I'm talking about. But anyways, we'll get to that later. Up until then, what were my thoughts? I loved it. I thought the writing was really, really good. I thought the scenes dragged a little bit. But
it's
like
chunky.
Once I got to the end of the book, it just felt to me like really juicy, like really like just good foundational stuff, because I felt like I knew Daphne and Simon so well. Like I really knew what they thought, how they felt. I loved all their banter. I thought their relationship and the chemistry, I was like, this is a real romance book. And I don't mean romance like it's got 1,000 tropes. I mean like this is just about 2 people and how they fell in love. And that was the one thing that really surprised me compared to the TV show. So I watched the TV show first, and again, ages ago when it came out. So I kind of couldn't quite remember what happened in the TV show. I rewatched it a little bit to remind myself. And there are so many storylines in the TV show. So many other things. And all the other
criticism. A lot of people say that. It's a criticism of the show.
Yes. And I got to be honest, I can understand. I think if I'd read this book and saw that as the adaptation, I'd be like, who the fuck are these people? What are they doing? What's going on?
Where's my backstory? Like, where's my flashbacks? Where's my getting to know these characters?
Yes. Exactly, because like this book is just about Daphne and Simon. Any other character only comes in relation to them. Like it's very, very about them.
Julia Quinn writes well. Like there's a reason why this series got picked up. You know what I mean? Like
she writes really well. I think, barring this one scene, which is different, but like I think she got the balance of setting up the fact that this is a society where like women are very objectified and sold basically into marriage and that sort of thing. Like it's that olden time vibes. But she had Daphne was kind of a little cheeky and a little bit sassy about it, and was very
like a lot of women possibly were. There would have been so many women that they are not just happily taking this, like they are hiding bits of themselves. and they're kind of living in their secret rebellion of this,
Exactly.
I don't believe 100%. Women are made out in like man's version to be like stupid and lesser, and as if they weren't well aware that they were whole people with whole lives to live.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. By the way, when I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes here.
Of course.
Because I think yeah, like I highlighted so much in this book, like that's, I think, when you really know a book is good. There were so many turns of phrase that I just loved, and bits that I'm just like, man, this is good shit, right? Julia writes really well. And Daphne was really funny. She gave his arm a reassuring pat, but yours was a most admirable attempt. Like, she's so patronizing. Simon's really funny. Most people, Simon said bluntly, are fools. And like, Julia is just funny. This one, Nigel exhibited stellar timing for the first time in his life. Like, I just think it's a funny book. Like,
she's throwing shade. That's funny.
It's good. I also think that she did really well, which I was just so interested in from a writer's perspective, of she didn't do the like one chapter is Simon's perspective, one chapter is Daphne's perspective. It flips between it as you go. Sometimes within a scene, like within one page, you flip from her perspective to hers, and it's all in third person. And I don't know how she does it so well, because you're never confused.
That's very much considered breaking a rule, but I guess the idea is that you have to know the rules to break them and know how to break them well.
Exactly. Like, I wouldn't know how to do that.
A lot of people do just go heading and like the character's name at the start, and it's actually a real art form to move with the story and tell it from the POV that would be the most intriguing at that time. And maybe that does mean it's not every chapter.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
That's really an art form to do that and not confuse the reader.
Definitely. Another thing I forgot to mention, and I don't even think I mentioned this in the vlog, but the vocabulary. I love the vocabulary. It's so good. It's not hard to read, but there are a lot of new words that were fun to learn and just added to the period, to the time period.
Right.
Which I know is not historically accurate, but I don't really give a shit about that. It just gave the vibes.
Building on the aesthetic.
It's an aesthetic. Yes. It's a time period aesthetic. This isn't this isn't history class. So the scene. So
the scene.
Trigger warning from now on, but the scene where Simon comes home drunk, he falls asleep. He wants Daphne to be in the bed with him, sleep near him. And this is where I'm going to dive into this a bit more than I did in my vlog, because what happens next, I'm not excusing at all. She definitely basically assaulted Simon and basically raped him. However, it's really interesting. One of the things she said was she sees that he is hard and says, I didn't know a man could want a woman in his sleep. Ooh. And this is the thing. I'm like, girly, this is not your fault, but that is not true. This is where the lack of sex education, she assumes that means, oh, he wants me, even in his sleep. It's like, no, that's just a biological thing. That's just a physical thing that happens when men sleep.
Yeah.
It's no. And so she seduces him while he's still sleeping. And then he wakes up and he is then giving, I guess, vocal consent. But the fact that where it started was with him sleeping. I really don't like it. It reads as very rapey. And then she has realized at this point that every time he spills his seed, as to use how they say it, she realizes that that's what he does and that that's what causes a baby, and that maybe he can actually physically have a baby rather than just like he can't, you know.
Oh yeah, that's their whole beef.
Yeah.
He
and that's
doesn't want
see,
one,
yeah,
but he
these are
sells
now like
it.
two different things, I guess.
Yeah.
But just focusing on the rape. She knew he did not want a child, and
So
yet
did they complete it in that scene while he's drunk?
yes, he's hungover, I guess. He was drunk and then he fell asleep, and then she woke him up, and then they finish, and he even says, like, he kind of says, like, wait, no, you know, like, he kind of says, like, you can tell. He's not using the words fully, but he is saying, like, I don't want to finish inside you. That is what he is saying. And she knows that, and she knows he does not want to conceive a child. And she continues anyway. She refuses to get off him. She's on top of him. That's rape. That is just rape. And I was just so disappointed in Daphne as a character. At the start, I feel like, and I'm not here to cancel Julia Quinn, because I think she did right when it happened, the sort of scenes around it, where she shows Simon's perspective and Daphne's perspective. She does seem to be like, Simon says things like, you took advantage of me, but then Daphne's saying wild shit back, like, you know you wanted it. And I'm like, girl, that's so bad. And Daphne even says things like, I know I should feel ashamed, but I don't. And so I'm like, okay, so maybe this is her initial reaction, and Julia's going to lead us, like, eventually Daphne's going to, like, apologize. But no, the book just continues on with no one thinks Daphne's at fault. One, because no one really knows, but everyone else knows. All everyone else knows is that, oh, Simon lied about the fact that he actually can physically have children. And that's like the big thing. And it's like, Simon's so bad, and Simon needs to apologize to Daphne, and Simon needs to sort this shit out. And I'm like, what about Daphne apologizing for assaulting you? Because that's just insane. And that's why the rest of the book was soured, because Daphne didn't continue any reflection. She didn't reflect on what she did. I just think she genuinely didn't think she did anything wrong. And I think the fact that he ended up deciding that, yes, he does want children, doesn't negate what happened in that moment. And I'm like, it's bad. What's your thoughts?
It's giving really like women can't abuse men vibes. And I'm not then coming from like, I know men are so quick to be like, woman rape too, and it's like, honestly, the statistics are so fucking low, like, you know, but they do. And they can also certainly assault other people. Like, women are not pure creatures. They are very much capable of wrath and assault and anger and all these things. So it's giving some weird twisted, like, if a man had done all the things she was doing, I don't think would it have even got picked up.
Yeah,
because it would have been so problematic. Do you know what I mean? It's giving like 100%. The little white girl gets away with murder kind of vibes. Literally, oh my god, do you know what sprung to mind is the freaking like girl in New Zealand, and I think she was drinking and crashed a car and killed multiple people or something, and she got off, and everyone was like,
it's crazy.
Like, this is crazy. Like, if you were like a brown dude or something, you literally would have gone to jail. Like, the whole thing was this big scandal because she's a pretty skinny white girl. So it's definitely giving like pretty privilege, like all that kind of stuff.
100%.
The other thing is that I do think there are people who do that. Like, there are people who are okay with, like, it's a thing to them. Like, they find it fun. Like, you'll read it in books where like they get woken up, you know? And so, but again, there hasn't been a conversation. That conversation wasn't happening off page. There's no hinting that it ever happened off page.
No, and she did it like
exists.
Well, there was one bit that I like was wild, because she literally says something like, and when it's happening, her thought process is like, oh, like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Like, she made an intentional decision. And then afterwards she's like, I didn't take advantage of him. I didn't look at him and think, oh, now I'm going to. And I'm like, yes, you did. You totally did do that. You did have that thought process.
I actually think the sleep thing's worse. No, the sleep thing I honestly think is not worse than he doesn't want to have kids.
Side of it.
Yeah, I think that's worse.
It's similar to like men who like the classic, the Desperate Housewives storyline where Carlos like replaces her pill.
Her birth control.
Her birth control pills. Like really bad. Like that's yeah. But this is where it's almost like a missed opportunity that I think Julia could have done really well with, because it is one of those situations that is really grey and complex.
Yeah, because a lot of people maybe didn't think it was a big deal.
Exactly. And I mean,
they think men always want to have sex. I don't know. Like maybe they just don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And because once he woke up, he was into it. So I can see why they might think that, and why they might think that, you know, because he wasn't honest up front, that, you know,
like
I can see the argument.
Relationship revenge. Like it's kind of like they're supposed to have kids. You've been lying about the fact that you've been playing me. Also, like he's playing her naivety, like being a woman growing up in this world where they don't get told anything. So he is taking advantage of her in a couple of ways intellectually by not sharing everything that he knows about something
and not knowing the fact that she doesn't know.
Eye for an eye is okay. I don't know what I think of that. I don't know if I lived that, what I would think of that.
No, but I can see why.
So,
yeah, exactly. And this is why it's just such a shame that there was not more reflection. Like this was such a pivotal scene, and it kind of wasn't treated as such. Like
the whole they could have both is really souring it.
Yeah, like they could have both reflect. Like the opportunity that was missed, I think, is that they both could have reflected. And really, there could have been a lot of introspection. Like Simon could have realized like the huge power dynamic of him knowing everything about sex and Daphne knowing nothing, her not knowing physically how babies are conceived. And she could have reflected on how wrong it was to do what she did. Like, you know, it wasn't character ruining for me until she just didn't apologize, and there was no,
you know, it was the lack of like.
She could have been redeemed, and she didn't.
Because also it's a little bit like they possibly are. I mean, the argument then I guess is how long was he going to lie about it? Like his whole thing, the whole book starts with him never continuing on the family line. So was he really going to commit to lying to her for their entire life? I don't know that that's feasible. We obviously don't get that alternative storyline, but you do have to ask, okay, if that was actually his intention to literally never actually be honest about, oh, I can physically have kids and therefore keep her from being able to have kids. One could argue that is worse than what she did. I'm not.
You're not. But yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah. 100%.
Again, that's all what ifs, right? That's all what ifs. Like we'll never know because that story didn't happen.
What if.
But it is kind of like, it is actually really bad that he lied about why he's not having kids. That he actually took it as like a physical thing.
Do you know what's funny though? Because you haven't watched my vlog yet, but I came up with an analogy because the fact that she doesn't know exactly how to have kids, is problematic and does make what he did taking advantage. But I don't think he lied. I don't know. That was my initial gut reaction, is that I don't think he lied. And this was my comparison, is that as a vegan, I will say I can't eat meat or I can't eat animal products. I physically can, but I morally am opposed to it. And therefore, when I say I can't, I mean it. Like, I'm not doing that. I can't do that. And for me, this is what Simon knew was. He was like, I can't have kids. Like, that is unfathomable to me, and I'm not having them. And I don't think when before she married, he gave her out of like, I can't have kids. And the fact that, this brings me into the other thing I want to talk about. Simon gives his out, right? Like, he gives her the opportunity. He says, I can't have kids. And I don't think the fact that he didn't specify exactly what that meant, I don't think it matters. I don't think it's that important. I think it needed to be talked about eventually. Yeah. But in that moment, like, it wasn't like if he'd said that in the moment that she was then going to turn around his mind. It was like, no, I've made this decision. And when she says, there's some great things like, oh, maybe he could have children. And she goes back and forth. The passage after this is really reflective, and I find it really interesting. She says so many contradicting things all in the same, like, scene when she's reflecting on this. She might be able to live without the children she hadn't yet born, but she couldn't live without Simon. The children were amorphous, unknown beings she couldn't picture or touch, but Simon was real, and he was here. But then she goes, if she could have even one child, she knew she'd feel complete. And then she goes, better to live with the man she loved than to have children with one she didn't. Like, she is so all over the page. And at the end of the day, this woman, or men, actually, I'm not going to generalize, sorry, but people marrying someone who have said, I don't want to have kids, like, I've heard that this is very common. They will marry them and think, they'll change their mind probably. Especially, though, women in their, like, early mid-20s who are like, I'm child-free, I'm not having kids. And guys will be like, well, I like her and I bet she'll change her mind. And then they get into their 30s, 40s, and it's like, no, I was serious. I don't want to have kids. Yeah. So to me, Daphne saying, like, I can't have children was a succinct way to get it across. Like, yes, maybe you could convince him that he wanted to have kids, and putting that aside, like, yeah, he should have kids in the sense that it is dumb to only not have kids because of your dad. That is dumb.
But, like, if that's the only reason, yeah.
Exactly.
Kind of, yeah. But again, not
it's his choice. It's his choice to decide, like, no, I don't want to have children. So the fact that she said yes and then was like, but I bet I can change his mind, I hate that. I think it's gross. I think So I weirdly was not angry at Simon. I think for him lying is not more to do, but it's a societal failing, not specifically Simon's, that she doesn't know how kids are made. He took advantage of it, which wasn't cool. But I still think he was being honest in a way. He truly thought he can't have children.
I think they should have been child-free as well. I think that would have been cooler.
Like,
did it need like, question for the story, did it need that scene? Like, was that their third act? Like, is that really, did they need to have that scene? Because it doesn't really sound like that caused that much, like, reflection and, like, big change or anything. So it's kind of like, so what was it, just like really bad? Yeah, like,
my God, Hannah, you've picked up on, you're right, because all that happened is she found out he lied to her, and she was really upset.
You have kind of convinced me on, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
She kind of convinced him, and then she did this. I guess, though, this is the reason. Oh no, it caused him to be like, I'm off, and he left. Right. Which I think was in his right. Everyone was angry at him for leaving. But I don't even think he realizes he was assaulted.
She didn't have to bloody assault him. She could have found out another way how to make babies. And she could have, you know what, and she could have just been pissed about the fact he hadn't been honest, and that was why he was fucking making a mess every time they got busy, you know?
Yeah. Like, and she could have talked to him instead of deciding, he's asleep. This is my chance to have a child. Literally. And then afterwards, she's like, I'm praying that I have a child, because she thinks that was her only shot. And I'm like, that is sadistic. The fact that you're like, so, like, you had a goal and you didn't care what Simon thought. You are like,
she's not even giving, like, that she just made a really stupid mistake. Like, she's literally like, he doesn't want one, he won't do this, so take advantage. He's not going to do it again because he didn't want to the first time. Like, it is really, yeah, it's really creepy when you put it like that.
It is creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad. Oh, and also just the fact that they're actually like all white in the book.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'd watched the TV show, I just pictured him black.
You just imagine it, like, you just imagine that they're black. Yeah,
exactly. I was expecting, because I knew that him being black was Shonda Rhimes' kind of, you know, her adapting the books to be a lot more progressive than they were.
Yeah,
I was expecting it to be a lot worse, but it wasn't that bad. It just kind of didn't like,
it was just like nothing. It
was almost like they existed in a
vacuum to the whiteness, like
like it was, you know, yeah. Oh wow, I'm glad I convinced you, because
I also think, like, was that really Daphne's character to do that as well? Like,
I think it could have been. I think that's that's where, again, I go back to the missed opportunity. I think she was really desperate to have children, and
she was kind of a little bit
naive,
like hot-headed when she wanted to be.
Yeah. And again, this is where it comes back to the lack of sexual education, of not realizing that what you did was kind of a violent act, that was like,
her naivety,
you know, she didn't know anything about
consent. Yeah, so it's like she's also, and that doesn't make her innocent of it, but it's sort of like how kids fight, and they'll literally be like, kind of like, they can literally be like punching each other, and very like little kids, like they get angry, and it's like, you like punch another adult, like you can go to jail, you know. But
like they don't,
but like a 3-year-old punching their like 7-year-old sister is like, we don't do that, you know. But like,
because it's like, if
it's still bad, but it's also not bad in the same way, because they are innocent to actually conceptualizing it on a bigger level. So it's whether
they've never been punched, they don't know that really hurts someone.
She's an adult has nothing to do with the information she has available to her. So even though she is an adult, and it's like, oh well, she should know better, it's like, but she doesn't, because she's literally been raised in a way that she might as well be an 11-year-old girl. Like, the difference between an 11-year-old girl then and like a 20-year-old girl back then is not really that different. Whereas these days, of course, you have access to so much information, you would expect complete different stuff. I mean, 11-year-olds probably know more than that nowadays. So, yeah, it's kind of like, again, not at all trying to be Team Daphne excusing her. It just, you're right, this is the grey area of it. Like, there's so many ways to really pick apart, not so much right or wrong of it, but like, what are all the societal factors that actually made this thing happen that was a violation?
Yes, 100%.
Because society is, in a way, responsible for the violation. She has no concept.
That what she's doing.
Of consent, of all of it.
And this is why also, reflecting on it, I still think I couldn't. Isn't this funny? Because now I'm almost like, I almost want to put it back up to a 4 stars, but I don't know if I can, because it still is quite, like, I can just imagine that being quite triggering for people, and that it not having a proper resolution is probably what brings it to the 3 stars for me. But that being said, I don't judge Julia Quinn, because the way she wrote about it, even though she could have done a lot better, she did use words like, you know, oh, did I take advantage of him? And Simon was like, you took advantage of me. Like, it's not like she completely blew past it. There was acknowledgement that this was a significant thing that happened.
Also, when was it first published?
That's what I looked up, and it was 2000. So that's like a long time ago. So
she's also a bit older.
I feel like if Julia wrote this now, she would have probably done it the justice it needed. And I look at this conversation it's brought up. I think it brought up really good conversations. And for a teenager, I wouldn't recommend it because I'm like, you don't want to see that and think that that's okay. But for adults who do know about consent, it did make for some good sort of thinking, some critical thinking of like, what, this is a really great situation and what are the things like,
Yeah, I hear that loud and clear.
Great pick, Hannah, for this.
Thank you.
I think that's about it. I think I'm gonna this conversation has felt very cathartic for me. That's because now that I feel like we've aired out, just that scene and how much it colored the rest of the book. Overall, though, like the book was good. Like I did like it. It was,
but the scene was too serious to let it not actually affect the book.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like, oh, that was a lame scene. It's like, no, that was like a scene.
That was a scene. But like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you're right. They could have literally just skipped that and had, instead of that scene being the reason that he like fucks off to some other estate, it could have just been a big fight. Daphne being, Daphne could have forced him to leave. That would have been more interesting if she was like, you lied to me, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
And so 100%. It could have still, so you can almost kind of try to just like put that to one side. Otherwise, like looking back through my annotations, there's great funny stuff. It's a very apart from that, it's quite lighthearted. I kind of love the simplicity of the plot. And I can say, it was good other than that.
Fabulous.
Baby.
What?
Yay.
Don't know how to end. Bye.
Okay. Bye.